In time, everything progresses back to God, and we always have to go back to the principle of first mentioning. Wherever a thing is first mentioned, we will understand the end from the beginning, because the end is always set from the beginning. In Genesis 2, God planted a garden, and one river came from Eden, the pleasure, and divided into four, for everything on earth is four. The first river is the Pison that flowed around the gold. At the end, God's people will have their rightful place once more. Then it's the Gihon. And finally we have the Tigris and the Euphrates River, which is very well-known rivers. The Tigris River formed the eastern border of the manifested garden, and the Euphrates formed the western border of the manifested garden. After the flood, the ark landed on Ararat, but the people moved down back to the place where this garden first manifested. And there they built a tower and said, "We will reach God and do it ourselves." And God said to Abram, "Move away from here." And Abram moved with his family to Haran, Haran meaning mountaineer. And then God said, "Leave now your family and go down to the land that I will show you." And Abram went down to Canaan. And God said to him, "Every place that your foot will tread, I will give unto you, from the Euphrates unto Egypt." This was the border of the promised land. And Abram sojourned in the promised land, putting his feet down. But every time there was a drought, they went down to Egypt, Abram, Isaac, and Jacob. And as they came there, they all lied about their brides, because the Bible is all about Christ and his bride. It ends with, "And the Spirit and the bride says, come." Egypt is the world, and all God's sons have to come out of Egypt. As a child, Jesus also had to come out of Egypt to become a son. For Egypt keeps us as slaves. But Israel eventually turned their whole promised land to a wilderness, and they had to walk chained all the way back to Babylon. After the Tower of Babel, nations separated, wars were ignited because of land grab, and everyone was building his own kingdom, and Nebuchadnezzar came out as the biggest king ever in the world, and he built the biggest worldly kingdom, and his city Babylon was right on the Euphrates River, the border between the old manifested garden and the promised land. When Israel didn't want to take their promised land, they said, "We are as grasshoppers." But God proclaimed, "As sure as I live," he said, "my glory shall fill the earth." John came paving the way for Jesus, and he ate grasshoppers and honey in the wilderness, bringing the hearts of the children back to the Father. But they beheaded him, and they rejected and killed the Son. He willingly gave himself and said, "This cup is the New Testament in my blood," knowing that he was going to offer himself. And for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. But as he stepped over the brook Kidron, he started praying, and his sweat turned blood, and he says, "Father, let this cup pass from me." And this was the cup that was going to be revenged on Israel, full of the blood of the martyrs and the prophets. And he knew, as they're going to kill him and called for his blood, that all this vengeance will come upon that generation. And Jesus prayed 3 times, "Let this cup pass from me." This is not the cup we are drinking. We are now having the cup that was found in Benjamin's bag. And David said, "Your cup will run over." We are not to drink the cup of vengeance. Revelation is not for our time, and the night Babylon was destroyed, they touched the cups that came from the temple, which resembled the blood of Jesus that would be poured for the whole world. And that very night there was a writing on the wall that says, "You were weighed and found to light." Cyrus the Persian king dried the Euphrates to come in through the moats in the city. And while they were feasting with the cups, Babylon fell. Babylon never burned. In Revelation, Israel is referred to as Egypt, Sodom, and Babylon. And he says, mystical Babylon burned, and her smoke rose up forever. Revelation is a vision and the consummation of everything that was written down before. Rome was the rod of iron and formed the legs of the statue in the consummation of all the kingdoms of Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, and Rome. And here we see that once again the Euphrates opened up, spiritually having all the nations in Rome coming against the city and the temple unto their end. At the present, we see all the weather patterns confused and all the rivers drying up and waters in the deserts. We cannot change times and seasons and take revelation for our time, but it follows the spiritual patterns. The Euphrates drying up in our day is a spiritual sign. The time has come for God's glory to fill the earth.